Welcome to Daps Magic, Disney and Positive Stuff. I'm Mr. Daps, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time, depending on who you are and how many times you have been here before. It's going to be a fantastic week because we have something very special to celebrate. This week, in fact, yesterday, was the 71st birthday of Kermit the Frog. And you could say, well, it's not really his birthday. There's other dates that it could be, but we're going to go with it because the Walt Disney Archives went with it and D23 went with it. So I think it works. But before we get into all of that and the life lessons we can learn from Kermit the Frog, I would like to encourage you to subscribe if you haven't done that already. And if you have, thank you. If you haven't done it already, leave us a comment or two. Greatly appreciate that. And then also leave us any ratings that you possibly can. 5 stars being the best, obviously. But on top of all of that, share this podcast with anybody that you know that would like to join the conversation and have a little bit more Disney and positive stuff in their lives. Because I think the more we do this together with the more people, the more of a difference we can have, the more fun we can have doing it, and the more positive the world would be. And wouldn't it be a great thing if one conversation and one word at a time, we made the world a little bit better every day? I think that's actually probably one of the lessons from Kermit the Frog. But we're going to let Kermit's lessons speak for themselves as we go through life lessons from Kermit over the last 71 years. Happy birthday, Kermit. And really, there's quite a few of them that we could pull from. As you go through the movies, you go through the shows, you go through his commencement speech at University of Maryland last year. But I think one of them is his life himself. And he kind of addressed this in the Maryland speech last year. But you look at what Kermit has done and his humble origins, and it really is a testament to the strength of playing the long game. I think that's probably the best way to put it. But you start from Kermit's origins, starts being made originally as a coat, and he appears in 1955 on Sam and Friends, which actually debuted on May 9th, which is where Kermit's birthday kind of come from in this manner. We could probably do an entire episode on what day is actually Kermit's birthday, but I digress. He started with very humble origins, black and white. We didn't even know that he would end up being green. Like, how would it not be easy being green? Or it's not easy being green when you don't know he's green in black and white. But from these humble origins, he has continued to grow and maintain relevancy for over 7 decades. And I think there's lots of things that could be learned from this, but the one that seems very obvious to me is that through the years, you see Kermit's voice evolving, changing, whatever it is. You see the mediums which Kermit has appeared on evolving and changing, most dramatically going from black and white to color. But through all of this, his core mission always stays the same. So the lesson we can learn is things can change, whether it's voice or medium, but really the core mission should always remain unshakable. It should stick right there. You know who you are, what you're about, and where you're going. And for Kermit, that's always singing and dancing and making people happy. I think as he says in the Muppet movie, which is one of my favorite parts of that movie because I just think it's so inspiring. But that's Kermit's dream. That's his core unshakable, mission that he's always doing. And he continues with it from day one to today. Is you see him singing, you see him dancing, and most importantly, making people happy, which I think is one of the big reasons that Kermit the Frog in particular resonates with me. And so as you think about this, consistency is perhaps Kermit's superpower. He's definitely had highs and lows through the years, and you could take that from a story-wise, from a society-wise, from a ratings-wise. But through all of that, Kermit has maintained consistency, and that really is his superpower. And so as we're looking for lessons of success that we could learn or life lessons that we could learn from Kermit, there's a couple different things there. One of them is the consistency. One of them is the staying true to yourself and staying true to that core mission. But really, it all comes down to both of those things are building towards a bigger end game and a long-term goal and a long-term vision versus this is easy today and hard tomorrow, so I'm going to change my path when things get hard. Instead, the lesson from Kermit in this regard is to keep on moving forward through it all, whether it's easy, whether it's hard, whether it's up, whether it's down, happy or sad. Kermit continues to move forward with that core mission, and he does that today. And so there's life lesson number one: consistency, superpower. Second thing that Kermit does that I think is absolutely fantastic, and it's one of my favorite things about this, is you look at from the very beginning up to the most recent Muppet special, the Muppet Show special with Sabrina Carpenter. Kermit has always been surrounded by a messy ensemble. Like, it is a very unique group of characters that surround Kermit. You know, there's every personality type, every character type, every animal, person, and monster type, like you name it. There are so many different types of characters that all come together to work together on the Muppet Show or whatever it is that dream is that they're pursuing in whatever movie, show, or whatever's being shared at the moment. And you think of all of this, Kermit really is that glue that holds all of this chaos together. And that's part of the fun and the humor of all of the Muppets. But what we learn from this is the focus on collaboration over competition. And that's something I think that we should have like in front of us all the time in this day and age, because I feel like there is so often a win-lose mentality everywhere you look. Like it's me or it's them. It's right or it's wrong. And yes, there are rights and wrongs, but it's so much the I'm going to succeed and you're going to fail. And that mentality is not what Kermit has at all. And I go back to that university speech he did last year, which was great for pulling Kermit quotes from, because I feel like it was a best of Kermit speech. But at one point he says, life's not a solo act. It's messy, delightful ensemble piece. And I think that really is what it's about. Like, nobody has the perfect life. Nobody has the perfect friends. Nobody has the perfect family. You know, we all have the Gonzo, the Fozzie, the hecklers, the Miss Piggy, the Scooter. Like, there's all of these different personality types in our lives. And really, going into the kitchen, because I love to cook, that's the variety that really is the spice of life. To quote my grandma and mother, as they used to say all of the time growing up, of varieties of life, the spice of life. And so when you focus on the collaboration versus the competition, this often doesn't mean that you're necessarily all of the time the spotlight, which Kermit isn't. Yes, he's the MC for the Muppet Show, but he's not the one shouting. He's not the one that's necessarily the loudest or the strongest. He is the one that leads by helping other people, whether it's Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Gonzo, and he's helping them find their success or their spotlight or that sense of joy and purpose. And he's really helping them achieve their dreams. And by doing that, he's also achieving his. And so it really is that collaboration over competition. It's coming together in community versus, you know, letting the chaos take over and everything falling apart. And there's a lesson there of leaping together, you know, doing it all together instead of jumping over other people to get ahead. It's way more fun, and success is way more sweeter when you can reach out a hand and do it together. And I love that that's just a ongoing theme in 71 years of Kermit stories that we've been able to watch and read, and you name it, all the different formats that Kermit has shared his story through the years. And it really is a wonderful thing, but it's also a challenging thing. You know, it's easy to want the spotlight. It's easy to want to have the win at the expense of somebody else's loss. You know, it's not necessarily the easy path, but it is the right path. And it's also the most rewarding path. And it's also going back to that first thing. It's looking at the long picture. It's that it's the long game of building people up and helping everybody succeed, as opposed to a short game of getting your win today at the expense of somebody else's loss. And that creates an environment where people are looking for the wins and the losses, and they're looking to beat other people down to get their own successes. And that's just not fun. It's just not rewarding. It's not successful in the long run. Like, eventually that does end up you getting burned. And I do love that instead, when you're thinking long game and you're thinking of collaboration over competition, it's very much like planting a crop and thinking of that long-term effect of taking care of the soil, taking care of the seeds, taking care of the plants, and really cultivating the relationship or that environment for success, so that not just you are succeeding, but everybody's succeeding. And that's such a fantastic thing to do it. And as we're moving through with that, I think one of the great things that comes also from, really, this should just be life lessons from the Muppet movie and a little bit more, because Kermit the Frog really does, and we should really thank Jim Henson and Frank Oz probably, but it's such a wonderful thing that they do with the Muppet movie of telling the Muppet story and Kermit's story, while also throwing in a ton of life lessons that I'm sure is a book. And if it's not, I would love to see it, maybe even read it someday, like, or write it, I guess. I don't know. But there's so much to pull from this. And as I'm going through, there's the line about, old friends you just met that I think Gonzo sings. There's not a word yet for old friends you've just met. And he says, I hope they're in the song, I hope to go back there someday, once again from the Muppet movie. And isn't that such an interesting perspective on the approach to community, and how you think this was made, 20 years, 21, 20-ish, 22 years, I guess, into the creation of the Muppets, as they're still growing, and 50 years ago now. But you start thinking of that mindset of, like, there's not a word yet for old friend you just met. And when you come into it with that perspective of, this is an old friend that I just met, how does that change how you treat people? How does that change how you perceive them? How does that change how you value the friendship? Like, is it a flippant thing, or is there a little bit more weight and depth to it? Is there a curiousness to it, or is there a dismissiveness to it? Like, there's so many different things that could come from old friend you just met. And I think it's something that needs to be explored. It's something that needs to be challenged in our own brains and in our hearts. And it's something that you kind of almost have to come at things with a curious and beginner's mind, even if you're 71 like Kermit. But I'm thinking of, ironically, Ted Lasso, because I feel like there's some similarities between Ted Lasso and the Muppets. And there's a fantastic scene that basically culminates with Ted saying, be curious, not judgmental. And I kind of think that's what the art of Old Friend That Just Met is. It's being curious as to who's in front of you, being curious as to the friendship that could be developing in front of you. It's being curious as to what could blossom because of this friendship. And it's being open to the possibilities of what could come from new friendships and olds. And old, not olds, that's not a word. But the takeaway with all of this is every person you meet, every stranger, every associate, every acquaintance, every friend is a potential collaborator in your dream. And also you're a potential collaborator in their dream. And so you really want to stay open to the lovers and the dreamers, and really create that sense of possibility in your own mind. It's something you have to choose to do, because it's not always natural, but you really want to create that sense of openness, of curiosity, of possibility in your own mind, with the thought of what could be, with this collaboration? Maybe nothing, but maybe everything. Like, who knows if this conversation ends up leading to the thing that eventually makes your dreams come true. And I think there's a couple things. Obviously, there's the potential for collaboration in every conversation, but like it also, there's a fantastic lesson there of not burning bridges, of not discounting things quite or overly quickly. And when we focus on that and go back to the curious, not judgmental, or the collaboration over competition, that changes how we approach people. And I think that's a very Kermit way to approach people. Even you think of Doc Hopper, I don't think Kermit necessarily gets, like, he never demonizes Doc Hopper. He actually kind of relates to him and says, hey, this is who you are, and I think you can do better. And I think that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting approach to take, especially in this days of fandom and life and everything else, where we're so quick to discount people or to ignore them or whatever it is. And I do have to wonder how it would change the world if, instead of going from discounting and destruction to curiousness and collaboration and the possibilities of what could be built. What would that do to change our fandom in the Disney community, in the Star Wars community, Marvel community, Star Trek, Muppets, whatever it is? What if we were quicker to be curious instead of critical? Like, I love that thought, because I just think it would change the entire dynamic of how we approach these things we really do love. And perhaps we don't express it in the best way or the most healthy of ways. And I'm sure there's going to be tons of people like, well, they just don't get it. This is how it is. This is what's true to this topic or whatever. And I get that. But everybody's allowed to have their own worldview. Everybody's allowed to have their own feelings and their own dreams and their own passions and their own perspectives on things. And the different perspectives and collaborative conversations that come from those really are where the beautiful things come from, whether it's the Muppet Show or the Muppet movie, or, When You Wish Upon a Star, Dreams Come True, and then you got Disneyland. Like, so many of these things come from the variety of ideas of people coming together and being curious and collaborative as opposed to critical. And I think that's such a huge and wonderful thing to learn from Kermit the Frog as we celebrate his 71st birthday. I'm getting closer to the end. I won't go too long on this. But I do think one of the things that's very important to learn from Kermit and Walt Disney, if we were to be honest, is really using dreams as a roadmap. And going back to the University of Maryland speech that Kermit gave last year, he said, dreams are how we figure out where we want to go. And then life is how we get there. And you think about that quote, and it really does come down to dreams provide direction. And then life is the path that we take to get to that direction. Maybe it's the roadmap, whatever it is. I think so often we get stuck on what's real that we forget to dream for what could be. We forget to dream of what the reality we want to have happen versus what's the reality we're living in at the moment. And I think it takes stories, it takes support, it takes the community of those around us to recognize that this is the reality we're in. It doesn't mean it's the reality we have to stay in. It doesn't mean that the reality that we live in today is the one that we will be living in tomorrow. And this is the importance of dreams. It's the importance of having that creative spirit and really stopping and allowing yourself to dream, creating a space for yourself to dream. Like, when's the last time you did that? And really keep your dreams alive. And I recognize that's hard. We go through ups and downs in lives, and sometimes dreaming's super easy and sometimes dreaming is super hard. And that's the reality of the roadmap of life. But I do know that when you have those dreams that you're seeking, those dreams that you're reaching for, that makes everything a whole lot more fun. It makes it a whole lot more positive. It creates possibilities. It also opens up new opportunities that half the time you don't even realize were there when you first thought of the dream and you first started down that road of life. And that's something I think that Kermit kind of, well, he doesn't kind of, he full on demonstrates, whether it's through movies or shows, you name it, all through the thing. And I'm thinking of you've got Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets opening up this coming week. And I think it's this week. Yeah. And this is an interesting thing because it's a very different approach for the Muppets. You know, I think for many of us in the parks for so many years, Muppets meant Muppet Vision 3D. And I loved that attraction. I loved that show. It was and is one of my favorite things the Muppets have ever done. But, you know, life had a different plan. And so now Kermit and the Muppets are now finding themselves pivoting their roles in the parks and going from a show type scenario or show offering to a preparing for the show in this story case for the Electric Mayhem. And things are going to change. They're going to speed up a little bit. The world is speeding up a little bit, so that kind of makes sense. And Kermit and all of the Muppets are pivoting to meet the time, to meet the opportunity, and to continue the dream of making people happy. You know, singing, dancing, and making people happy. So you start thinking about all of these different life lessons from Kermit. At its core, Rock and Roller Coaster is going to do exactly what the Muppets have always done. The goal is, let's make people happy. If we were to shorten it down to that long term, this is our core mission for the Muppets, making people happy. Does it do that? Check. So that's actually a good thing as you're thinking through how you approach different forks in the road in life. Does it fit that core vision? Yes, check. Is it collaboration over competition? Well, yes, check. They're working together to create something new and to create a new experience for people to have and zoom through Disney's Hollywood studios. Is it fit with the perspective on community with the old friend you just met? I would assume so. Like, this is a new approach. These are new things. This is a new collaboration. It's Muppets and a roller coaster versus Muppets and a theater, which is what they've traditionally been associated with. And this could, who knows? This could be one of the best things to happen for the Muppets. Like, in my perfect world, Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets opens up and it creates a whole new demand for more Muppet content. More Kermit the Frog, more Electric Mayhem, more Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Scooter, you know, Waldorf and Statler, Sweetums, you pick it, you name it. It's all there, hopefully. And it really comes down to not giving up on the dream and keeping new dreams alive and dreaming towards the future and living as we get there. And I think this is it's a perfect example. Like, it fits right in with everything that Kermit would do and with the Muppets through the years. And it really is that prime example of using dreams as a compass and recognizing that just like when you're sailing with a compass, you're going to end up going back and forth and things are going to not go necessarily the way you planned on, whether it's waves, wind, whatever. It's going to take a little bit to get wherever those dreams are. But that doesn't mean the dream has to die. It just means, you know, north is still that direction. You always know where to turn. You always know where to, you know, readjust your heading to. And if you get off the path a little bit, you've always got that dream to return to and to aim for again in the future. And as I try to wrap this up somewhat quickly, you know, I really do think it comes down to the end of the Muppet movie where Kermit sings. I'm not going to sing it for you because you don't want to hear that. But he sings, I should say, life's like a movie. Write your own ending. Keep believing. Keep pretending. We've done just what we set out to do. thanks to the lovers, the dreamers, and you. And I think that encapsulates the Muppets. That encapsulates what Kermit is all about. It's going on that movie of a ride that's the great movie ride. No, but it's going on that ride that's like a movie that is life, and recognizing that you get to write that story. Do you get to choose every little detail in it? No, but I'm sure people who write movies don't get to choose every little detail of how it's directed, how it's acted, how it's produced, how it's budgeted, how it's distributed, all of those things. Like, there's still going to be variables, but you keep doing what you've set out to do. You aim for that long-term goal, you keep going, and you do it in a collaborative spirit with new friends or old friends you've just met. So, the lovers, the dreamers, and you, all of them coming together to make something beautiful and amazing that you can look back at and go, I dreamed about that. And I dreamed about it because Kermit dreamed also. And because of those dreams, the world's a little bit better, or this happened, or that happened, or somebody smiled, or something got created. There's so many possibilities. But we have to have the courage to do that. We have to have the fortitude to do that, to look at that long-term goal, to focus on the collaboration versus the competition, to focus on those connections as we treat new friends as old friends we just met, and then also to continue on dreaming, because that really is so important. And so as we wrap this up, I know I've said this a few times, but this is my final question. If you're being like Kermit and you viewed your life as a movie and you are writing your own ending today, what's the dream that you've maybe stopped pretending is possible? That maybe you should revisit, maybe you should dream a little bit more about, maybe you should share with a friend that's going to be a collaborator versus competition. And maybe you need to dream a little bit more. And maybe you need to find that old friend you've just met that's going to help make that dream come true. But let me know in the comments, or just think of it to yourself. What is that one dream you've stopped pretending? And it's possible, because really anything's possible. With that, I'm going to sign off. So keep believing, keep pretending, make it a great week, keep kind, and we'll see you in the parks.